This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Out of the Ashes presents Missing Dad.
I might have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks if Pops wouldn't have pulled me back and said, yo.
Each episode is a thought-provoking interview with people across all walks of life to see how they were affected by missing key pieces in their relationship with their
I
dad.
told him as a youngster, he'll be the greatest man alive.
And now your hosts, Coley Harris and Amar Melton.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Missing Dad. I am Coley Harris. Well, go ahead.
And I'm your co-host, Amar Melton.
Amar Melton. And we are fortunate, even more than fortunate, we are blessed to have with us today a Rutgers scholar by way of Delaware, by way of University of Delaware, Brooklyn Hitchens. And more importantly than that, I'm super excited because she is of the lineage of the great Alfred Nelson, and I happen to be his grandson, and my son happens to be his great-grandson, and Brooklyn happens to be his great-great-granddaughter. We'll talk about Alfred Nelson at another time because he's like a superhero to me. You know what I mean? Just in case y'all didn't know, from Henderson, North Carolina, yes. But welcome, Brooklyn.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Brooklyn.
Okay, so who am I? I'm Brooklyn. Grew up on the north side of Wilmington.
Okay.
26th Street.
26.
26. I'm a P.H.D. candidate at Rutgers University in sociology.
Nice.
So my P.H.D. I should say my dissertation work is centered on Street P.A.R, which Coley is a part of. I'm a part of.
Explain a little bit about Street P.A.R. What is that?
So the Wilmington Street P.A.R project is a research project that has really taken over the city of Wilmington, as we know. Focused on violence in our communities, focused on health and opportunity in our communities, and the way in which those three things collide, particularly when violence is on the rise. So we know that gun violence is a huge problem in our city. And so we're looking at how Black men and women ages 16 to 54 are dealing with the violence and how that's affecting their outcomes.
All right, cool. So you're native Wilmingtonian, a scholar.
I guess.
All right, yeah. No, ain't no guess. You're a scholar.
Trying.
Yes, absolutely. So Missing Dads, we talk about everything dealing with fatherhood.
Right.
And we feel as though it's important, particularly in Black and brown communities, to talk about fatherhood because we don't want to get underneath of it. So, and look at the relationships of fathers with their children and how they impact their children's lives. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your relationship with your own father and how that's impacted your life.
That's a good one. I had to think about my dad a little bit more differently preparing for this. So I grew up in a two-parent household, interestingly. Both of my parents were married, right? They got married young, 19, 20. But they were miserable, right? So they were married, but they were miserable. And so they were married twice, divorced twice. So they got married, then they got a divorce. Then they got married again, then they got a divorce again. Okay. And it just didn't work out. And so growing up, I always watched the tension between them. And I think that shaped a lot of my life, just thinking about relationships, thinking about how the ways in which job loss affects families, the ways in which infidelity breaks up families. Growing up, we didn't grow up poor. We were lower middle class, I would say. Grew up on 26th Street. My parents were never homeowners. My mom didn't become a homeowner until she got divorced, interestingly enough. But thinking about my dad, I think I had to think more about his history. So he grew up without his biological father. Okay. So his biological father was in his life in the beginning, but he was abusive to my grandmother, his mom. And so he watched that growing up, watched them break up, watched all that chaos that came with that. And then he had a stepfather who stepped in. So I think his life early on was shaped by that chaos. And in some informal ways that shaped our upbringing as well as he became a father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was your relationship with your father, interactions,
That's a
and
good one.
yeah.
My dad's really strong man, but in retrospect, I think he was the leader of his household, but my mom really took care of the day to day. And I think we underestimate how even in marriage, it's important for the man to be the leader and the guider of the household, right? So for me, I watched my dad, take care of his family by paying bills and the financial stuff. But the day to day, it felt like my mom took care of a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that caused a lot of rift between them. So my dad worked at Chrysler. So he worked at Chrysler.
Chrysler, good money.
So this is the thing, right? So I had to thinking about like the impact of job loss and layoffs and things like that. So he had a good job, right? He got a good job, 21. He worked there 20 plus years.
Okay.
Good money. He worked the night shift a lot. So he wasn't home a lot during the day. We didn't see him that often. I would see him at night. But now connecting dots as it relates to him being 50 plus now, right? The job loss really messed him up, I think. Chrysler was a big deal for a lot of black folks in our community, right? You got a Chrysler job. Yeah. It was a good job.
Yeah.
But then you get laid off, right? The plant closes down. So hundreds of men and women lose that livelihood.
Yeah.
And he never really recovered from that.
Yeah.
He never got the same kind of job. Then his health started to fail, which I can talk about at some point. But I think it's really important to think about the role of not just joblessness, like not having a physical job, but that job loss part and how that destabilizes the black family too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just to jump in, as a man, and a father, being a provider, that's a big piece of, of the puzzle for us. Your father, we're family, so I know, your mom's a little bit, a couple years older than me, and I can imagine even from my era, I'm 45, and going backwards, that was it. Being, excuse me, I got a little cold, y'all. Don't I'm coming over. But being a provider is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big part of being a father and being a man. And when you get to a point where job loss and you can't provide for your family, it really does something to you.
It does.
You know what I mean? So I can definitely identify with that piece there. And then like coming from Chrysler was a big. Your grandfather worked at Chrysler.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
My
Retired from
grandfather
Chrysler.
worked at Chrysler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Yep.
We in Wilmington, Delaware, and Chrysler and GM. Growing up, it was like if you got in there, you were set.
Yep.
So
at least that's what a lot of people thought.
Yeah.
And I think the older generations are thinking about like people who were 60, maybe who were able to retire from Chrysler. They did all right.
My grandfather retired from there.
Right.
I had a friend down the street. His grandfather retired from there, and they lived good lives off of Chrysler's wages.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that 40 to 50 age range, the people who didn't get to retire, they got laid off.
Yeah.
I feel like in my dad's case, like he watched a lot of people, end up getting addicted to drugs, health failing. That's what happens to him now. Like his health is failing, just from being on that plant, the line, and just constantly working and eating poorly. Like the automotive industry, like that being stripped from Delaware, I feel like it messed up a lot of households in a way.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're definitely bringing a different perspective because up until now, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't think about fatherhood in the context of employment and what type of impact it has on the household.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you see your relationship with your dad change as, he was kind of, Chrysler shut down and he had to find new employment. So how do you see your relationship changing?
That's a good one. So the financial piece, I saw the shift, just me being observant. He started working security, which was a different pay grade for himself. And that's what he kind of ended up doing. And so that caused financial strain. My mom was getting like 2 jobs, 3 jobs. So she worked at like banking kind of stuff, but then she picked up another job at Comcast and then another job. So I watched her kind of, it seemed like she was the one struggling to keep things like afloat.
What when he got laid off was just, I guess, obviously you went and found other jobs, but
Right.
was there a period in there where you just spending more time around the house? And what age were you around when this happened?
That's a good question. So the plant shut down, I think, 08, 07.
Okay.
So that would be 10 years ago. So I was what, 17? No, yeah, how old am I now? 27? 17, 16. Yeah. So it was just around the time I was about to go off to college. So some of it I miss going off to college. You know, you're in your own kind of bubble when you're there. But from what I saw, I think that had a lot to do with the dissolution of their marriage.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, and that's what the data would show, right? Like the key causes of divorce, right, are financial strain, infidelity. There's a couple, but the financial piece is like number one. When the money's not right, I think a lot of times it, causes strain. And so a lot of people don't stick it out.
Yeah.
And I think for a black man thinking about financial stability, they want to be in control of their households, the financial piece, when that's not right, it kind of, I think it can mess with their head.
It definitely can, because society expects us to have jobs.
Right. The women do too, no matter what, right?
Our value as men is attached to whether or not we have a job.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Or our financial stability.
Yep.
If I go home right now and tell my wife, hey, I quit my job, she's gonna look at me a little different.
Yep.
Then in the same breath, if I say, I'm just kidding, I got $1 million, and you'll be able to physically see the excitement or the change. But that's just at home. You have the support of your spouse, but you go out and tell a stranger or somebody who doesn't live in your household, hey, I just quit my job, and don't tell them what your plan is or anything like that. They can be like, why you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
You had a good job.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And then you turn around and say, well, I got $50 million. Oh, well, you doing good. Yeah, no, I always knew you had a plan.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding. I really lost my job. And they're like, nah. And they go back and they start talking about you.
Yep.
Telling you.
I think I know society is hard on black men. I feel like we even black women, we as black women, we hold you to such a high standard that no matter what, you are supposed to provide for your, like, we don't give black men the space to fail. We don't give them the space to go through a period where they're trying to figure things out. It's I don't think we're kind to black men. I don't.
Yeah.
Compared to other men.
Yeah. I think that I can agree with that. But as a black man too, I would say that I think we kind of need to be held to a high standard too as well.
Agree.
For nothing else but just to make sure that we're there and providing for our family and our children. Historically, we know that the black family,
right,
black fatherhood is undervalued.
Yeah,
it was literally illegal for us to be married, during a long swath of time in the United States, which definitely destabilizes the family unit. And then,
right,
looking at the prison industrial complex and, the mass incarceration, it's interesting because right now we're in prison. They, when I went to prison, they would say that it's a pendulum that swings, and every 10 years or so, it comes back around to this prison, reform and, opportunities for people who wouldn't get out of prison, who aren't supposed to get out of prison, to get a shot, and we're back. The pendulum has swung all the way to the left, and we got this prison reform going on and everything like that. And Amar and I talk about this, but what about the damage, though?
Right.
What about the damage?
The
like
trauma.
Yeah. This whole tough on crime, crack error, disparities between sentencing for crack and cocaine, disparities between substance abuse treatment between blacks and whites. And we can look at the national data and it bears out all the way across. But like in Delaware, it's just clear, like from charging to indictment to sentencing, all the way down, between blacks and whites, from charging to indictment, all the way down to sentencing time, it starts separating.
Yep.
Quite quickly. And most black people get treatment, substance abuse treatment in jail, in
Right.
prison.
Right.
That's a fact. So I'm just, we're at an interesting time right now where we're looking at this reform and, people coming home. But what about the children?
Right.
Right.
And it has a reverberating effect, right? So you have with this incarceration and prison reform, you're pulling black men around like pawns, right? Moving them here, moving them there, breaking up families. But you have to think about the whole picture, the scope, right? The family, the unit, the children, the community, and how our treatment of black men has reverberating effects on the whole family dynamic. So the damage is not just on the black man himself, his psyche, all the time he's lost, right? But also all the time that family has lost from, having that dad around or that parent around. So it's a mess.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't care, and that's what gets me.
Yeah.
It's like people, like Yasa always says, people sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that all this chaos is going on in our communities.
Right.
So it's deep. But it makes me wonder, like, so I had a dad, he was in my life, I felt like he protected me, but really who is protecting black women? And a lot of times I feel like people are oblivious or okay with our abuse and our mistreatment, and people just feel okay with the fact that so many of us are disrespected by men. So I think in retrospect, I think he protected us. Right, but I think there's a lot that was missed.
So you feel like on the macro, like in the big picture, things were okay, but on the micros, opportunities for, I guess it sounds like, more communication around the smaller things that could make or break you, essentially.
Right, the communication on how men are supposed to treat you, and your interactions with the opposite sex, and what you should and shouldn't allow. And I think that some men are really good at it, but I think some men don't teach their girls all of those things, right? And so you kind of go out into the world and try to figure it out and make mistakes and all of those things. And I think that was kind of the case with me and my sister growing up. So we had to kind of find our way, even though he was there. So it was a weird thing where he's physically there. I can call him. Everything's good. But that piece was missing. Yeah.
It's a tough situation. It's a tough situation, and I'm speaking from my own perspective. You know what I mean? It's a challenge, right? Because what I mean, sometimes as a man, you don't know when to have these conversations or when it's appropriate or that your child even needs for you to have that conversation.
I think that was it.
Yeah, you like you say, you become oblivious to it. But I think in my situation, you know what I mean, with I got blended family, and my daughter, you know what I mean, she's the youngest, and I feel as though like she's like my daughter, my blood daughter.
Right.
And I have these conversations with her because I've seen the dark side. You know what I'm saying? And I know, you know what I mean, I know like what people can do. I've seen the wicked side of people, and I know that. And then with her being a young lady, you know what I mean, I want to protect her and make sure she's safe and secure. And, you know what I mean, I kind of teach her about the different stuff to look for in a guy and, you know what I mean, whatnot. And it's like, if you somebody that you're really interested in and you cool, like bring him around. I'm not gonna bite his head off, you know what I mean? I don't know, I might,
you know,
I might, but bring him around, you know what I mean? So let me meet him, right? And it's something about that because it's not a thing of like trying to intimidate him or anything like that, but you can tell something about a young man, you know what I mean, about how he stands up, how he presents himself around your father. You know what I'm saying?
And so we as girls, what we would do is we would keep him secret. Like we would date a little boy on the side, and your dad knew you were kind of talking to somebody, but he never met him. And I think those secrets are what allows you to get caught up in these situations with these men.
Absolutely, because men know when your household isn't right.
There it is.
Yeah. Without coming to your house, you start to carry certain characteristics that you might not even be conscious of, that people that got an eye for to pick up on.
Yep.
Oh, I got you. I don't gotta talk to your dad. Your dad ain't holding it down at home anyway. Yep. And then before you know it, he putting hands on you.
Listen.
Or God knows what else. You know, with my daughter, even now, she's only 8, but I'm grooming her in what her life should look like.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, I can't allow anybody else or society to even for her to, like, she'll make her own decisions. But there's certain things, like especially with men, like, hey, one day you'll get married, one day you'll have your own family.
Yep.
But I, as well as your brothers, as well as your mother, your grandparents, etc., will make sure that whoever you bring into this family is somebody that holds itself accountable.
Absolutely.
I think accountability plays it because that's early on, right before she even has kids. She needs to have somebody who's gonna hold herself accountable.
Listen,
Accountability is huge.
even teaching her how to deal with little boys in school, like little boys are slick, hit girls and run, and just teaching girls on how they should and shouldn't be treated by young men, teaching them what respect looks like, holding a door, what men or little boys should and shouldn't say to you. Like those things are key. I'm telling you, talk to your daughters.
Yeah.
With fathers in the household, we talk about this pretty often. It's in terms of they gotta be held accountable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a high expectation for them. But even
Right.
money aside, like you have to be held accountable to be an example.
That's true.
Finances don't have nothing to do with you being an example or being able talking to your child
That's true.
about these important things because you can't let life teach them. If life teach them, anything might happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
So they can't be caught up in the finance. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, life will give you a real hard lesson, a real cruel one too. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting there.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship like with your father now?
It's good now because I think now I understand more of his trauma. So thinking about his life growing up without his biological father, right? His mom actually passed on his birthday,
Oh wow!
right? So like I think over time he went through things that he never really dealt with. And I was talking about his health earlier. So all those years on the plant, my dad would drink a gallon of Mountain Dew, iced tea, pork, hot wings, potato chips.
Yeah.
And so now like his health is very poor. So he's had 3 heart attacks. I'm not even lying, like 3 heart attacks,
Wow.
Congestive heart failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart beating on 20%. He still kicks though. He still rips and runs and smiles and laughs. But I think all of those years of not taking care of himself caught up to him. So my relationship with him now is good. It's always been good, but now I understand more about all that pain I think that he kept bottled in, and how that expresses itself through health outcomes as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Let me ask you this: do you feel as though you really know your dad
that's a good question.
as a person?
As a person,
Yeah.
I do. I think there are questions I have that I've never asked him, which is I should ask him. I think I understand him more, but I don't think I know him as well as I probably would want to. Yeah. And I wonder why that is, though. I mean, maybe it's just because we communicated, but not about the hard. Families sometimes we don't like to have those hard conversations. So those nitty gritty conversations I didn't really have with him that often.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him cry like twice.
Yeah.
So like he kind of kept that dad exterior mostly throughout my life. So
yeah, and it's a reason why I asked that. Just from the conversation that we're having, but just to for you, to really to explore that, within yourself. I didn't. My dad was in my life all of my life. I never really met my dad and had an intimate relationship until I was in my 30s.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And I was in prison, and so how it happened is my mother, her health was failing, and she couldn't make the trips down. So my dad, he would come a few times a year by himself. And we just started to talk. We started talking. I remember one time I was in a treatment program, and them treatment programs in jail, they were, doing these hot seat groups as they call them, and hot seat, because you in there and the people, you write out your life history and and that was a big deal. You write out your whole life history and you share it with the group, and they would take notes. It was intense. And they would take notes, and they get to question you and quizzing you and asking you about different things and this and that. And I realized I was like, damn, I don't have
the answers.
Yeah, I don't have the answers to all this stuff. And but it brought up a lot of stuff. And my dad, when he came down, I was like, I started asking him questions, and I don't remember him telling me that. At that point, I didn't remember him telling me that he loved me. And we had a real intense conversation. But what it did was it opened up a door for understanding, right? And it's like he started explaining to me how he was raised and his upbringing and all that stuff. And I feel as though from that point, like I said, I was probably, early 30s. And from there, our conversation, because I asked the questions and he was open to it, we started talking on a real level.
Right.
And, I just started to understand who he was as a person and as a man. And, context is everything.
That's true.
When
That's
you,
really
you
true.
you see somebody and somebody does something or acts in a certain way, or, you can personalize it. But when you get context behind it, particularly with somebody who loves you,
Right.
it changes everything. And that was key for me. And it's
Yeah.
like our relationship now, from then 30 over the last 15, 12 to 15 years, our relationship has continued to grow from those jailhouse conversations,
Wow.
How do you think your life would have been different if you had those conversations 15 years prior?
Oh wow, it would have been a lot different. A lot different. And the reason why I say that is so 30s, I'm kicking it back, until I was in my teenage years. It just because I yearned for that.
Yeah.
I yearned for those relationships, like with my dad. And he didn't talk about how he was raised and growing up. And you know I was raised in the city, but I'm country.
Right.
Like
Right.
I like, I like country stuff. Like I like guns. I know that might not be popular nowadays and shit.
Well, actually, it
You know
is.
what I mean? Yeah. Some people, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I like guns. Not trying to hurt nobody and all that. But like hunting and wilderness and being out. Out in forest and nature and all that stuff. Like I
Okay.
like that stuff. I've always liked that stuff. And my father, being raised in a rural setting, my father was the oldest son of my grandfather, Edward Harris, Senior. He was a sharecropper. And my father was the oldest son. So, at a young age, he was working like a man. Um, so his relationship with nature and the country and stuff like
Mm.
that was different. It was tainted. It was tainted with hard work and poverty. You know
Right.
what I mean? And his thing was to get away from that
Yeah,
as quick as
resentment of
possible.
it.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wanted to get away from that. But like if having those conversations with him and talking about that stuff, I feel as though it really would have just really put a lot of contacts and stuff
Yeah.
into it just would have helped me figure out a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? Because I yearned for that relationship with my dad, you know what I'm saying? I really did. And like I wanted him, to be at my football games,
Right.
and I wanted him to I wanted to go hunting with him and just talk. He just was so quiet. He wouldn't talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And now looking back, I know that it was because, it was pain, it was some
Yeah.
pain connected to his past. But man, yeah, I think it would have really changed the trajectory of my life, man.
You think it would have made you a better father?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it would have made me a better father. And honestly, and I don't want, man, I don't want to put this on my dad because it was a lot of forces
Right. Of course.
converging on our community in that time, and in the black community in the 80s,
Yeah.
with like crack,
Cocaine.
cocaine, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Thank you, United States
Concentrated
government.
poverty. Yeah.
We appreciate United States government for using us, to help
As
fight your war,
pawns.
down in Central America,
Mm.
and all that stuff like that. But y'all like fucking destroyed us,
For real.
for real.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a lot of things converging on us, and but with my father being there, and I was like, my dad was like, he was like only like one of like two. It was like two guys I grew up with who had their dads in the household,
Wow.
and those conversations, yeah, I think it would have made me a better person, all in all. But I understand. I got to temper that with it. I understand. I understand my dad now, and I understand um, just the dynamics of why he didn't talk about everything like that. I understand. So I don't, man, I don't blame him, but I know it would have been very impactful in my life.
What do you think is the recipe then for reaching that understanding? And it sounds like it freed you too. Like it
Hmm.
freed you spiritually, it freed your life. Like what's the recipe for coming to an understanding about who your dad is, allowing yourself to be free from the pain that you feel like, he's called you by not being there to build that healthy relationship?
I think it's the conversation. It's
The
the
conversation,
real.
yeah.
It's like it's the real conversations. People that we care about, we don't want to hurt them.
Yeah, of
You know what I mean?
course.
So, and oftentimes connected with these conversations is pain. It's pain. A lot of things have happened. And it's pain connected with it. But those conversations are essential.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you have two people who are willing to have those conversations, it can do wonders. You know what I mean? It can really do wonders for the relationship.
A lot of fatherhood is engagement.
Right.
That's probably one of the biggest, like, top three things that a father has to be is engaged.
Engaged.
You have to know your child
Right.
inside and out to the best of your ability.
Right.
Even if you feel like it's blind spots, you got to start to ask questions, because otherwise, go ahead.
But that's what I was going to say. The blind spot a lot of times is that gender dynamic. So thinking about like that layer of fathers raising girls,
Yeah.
fathers raising young women. I feel like there's a disconnect sometimes in that way.
It can be. It can be. I think it's a lot on how you raise the child. Like, I think so. In my perspective, being like hyper conscious of how I raise my kids, just because I don't want them to have a similar experience to me. Talking to them,
Right.
Like, my daughter's 8, my son is 6, my other son is 3.
Mm-hmm.
I ask them questions all day long, questions, and even questions that might make them feel a little weird, because being children, they don't have an understanding. But I'm like, yo, what about this?
Give me an example, like what?
So let me think. And this is more so with my son Ahmad, the 6-year-old.
Okay.
I was watching Friday.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end scene where Craig fights Debo, Craig had a gun on him at the time, right? And he pulls the gun out and he points it at Debo, and me and Ahmad are watching it. I'm like, wow, this is deep. And he's watching. He's like, wow,
in it, right?
And it's if you remember, it's two separate endings there. Like, in one, he shoots him, and then he does like a flashback, and then he takes the gun out and he fights him, right? Debo was being mad disrespectful.
Right.
Craig got upset. Ahmad understood Craig's frustration. At the core level, he understood anger, and then he saw a gun and he saw a shoot, and he was like, "Daddy, did he kill him?" And I said, in that scenario, he did. But then I explained to him. I said, "It's a movie. How did that make you feel?"
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Well, one, you don't shoot people.
Right.
Our family has a history of violence.
Yeah.
And that's 6. I gotta tell you now, don't shoot people."
I'm straight right now.
but like different things like that. Like, everybody has different parenting styles.
That's true.
And they shy their kids away from certain things. But I little nuggets I drop in there, and just to see kind of how they respond, and to see also what they have an understanding of.
Yeah.
My kids are young, but they're not dumb.
Right.
And they go around other people's kids who don't have a parenting style similar to mine, and they're exposed to things that I didn't expose them to.
Right.
And before I let them hang on to that and try to make sense of it themselves, I put little feelers out. Oh, what you know about that? Oh, you said that in the song. You even know what that means?
Right.
Oh, let's talk about this. You know what I mean? You got to know your kid.
Know your kid, so the communication part, but also using things as teachable moments, everyday things that they care about.
Absolutely. Because kids only stay kids for 12, 13, 14 years.
That's true. So what will they develop into?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The baby, the young infancy stage, the immature, that stuff go away.
That's true.
And then you got, like, for example, Aliana will be 18, I'll be 36. When I'm 58, she'll be 40.
58, 40. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
I'm only raising a kid for a very short blip of this, and then from there I'm raising an adult.
That's true.
Who'll have her own feelings and understandings about me as a father and as a person, and I got to be conscious of that the whole time, because we're gonna be older a lot longer than we'll be younger.
That's true.
Excuse me, I kind of got away. I forgot what you asked me.
No, I don't remember.
I'm just thinking, like, man, is life?
Oh yeah.
Life is trippy in the sense, like, we'll be old together.
Yeah.
Just like I'll be old together with my dad.
I know, right?
I hear that.
I won't be old though.
Yes, you will. But y'all be together. That's what counts.
Yeah.
but I know where I was going with that. When I'm 60, she'll still be my baby.
Right.
And and being conscious and engaged now and knowing who she is, I'll be able to point out when she's 42, oh, something's not right.
Right.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Because you know her.
Dad, how'd you know?
Yeah.
You know, if you miss out on large gaps of time, or if you're not as engaged in the household as you should be, once that child grows up and they get away, you'll
Right.
never have that same amount of time or an opportunity to be engaged with them. You can miss that. You can be going on something completely life-changing, traumatic, and you wouldn't pick up on it because you don't know your kids.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been picking up even from the interviews that we've been doing, like talking to women.
Talk about the interviews.
Yeah.
What interviews is those?
So for the P.A.R project, we've been interviewing Black men and women. I said ages 16 to 54, but for me, I'm really focusing on the women, right?
Yeah.
So how are women dealing with this epidemic of violence in our community? But one of the things that's coming out real strong is this fatherhood piece. Like these women are hurting. Like so many of them have a pain and resentment for the fact that their father wasn't there. Yeah. And we know that the data shows that Black fathers are involved in their children's lives more than ever. We know that, right? But there's still scores of women who were growing up without their dads.
Yeah.
And so it comes through, and it comes through hard, like the anger, the resentment of either their father's locked up, or maybe their father just started a new family because it didn't work out with their mom, and you see these women struggling to negotiate relationships with other men or negotiate relationships throughout their life, with this gap.
Yeah.
And so I think some of us are fortunate to grow up with our dads, but for the women who aren't, it's coming across hard.
Yeah.
It's
coming
tough.
across hard.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting dynamic, and I'm just going to do a little plug right here.
Sure.
Dads, if you go out and marry again, have another relationship, whatever the case may be, do not go out and say, well, I'm going to get it right this time and leave them other kids behind.
That part.
Yeah.
It happens way too much. And I get it. As a father.
Well, explain that to me, because I don't.
I'm going to tell you, I get it. Nah, I get it because I get the part of trying to do better.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? As a man, man, I'm trying to be a good dad or whatever like that. I messed this whole situation up. Maybe we was young, maybe, we was incompatible, whatever the case may be. But a child comes out of it, and then you go out and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna find my soulmate. I'm gonna find somebody I'm more compatible with. We have children, family, raising, blah blah blah, and all that stuff like that. But sometimes men, they do that. They look going forward and they don't look back. So, and I'm not excusing them. There's no excuse for that. So I'm just telling you, hey, Dad, listen, if you got kids from multiple relationships, right, please make sure, even though going forward you want to do the right thing and be the best father that you can be, I applaud you for that. However, the other children, you still need to have that conversation. You still need to have that relationship. You need to explain some things, whether you were, you were in your addiction back then, whether you were in a criminal lifestyle, whether you were is infidelity, whatever the issue might have been, incarceration, whatever, fix that.
For real.
And carry your children the same. That's all I got to say about that.
Because if not, it shows up. Like I was saying,
resentment.
You see resentment, and then it shows up because we date and we marry our fathers in a lot of ways, right? So you're talking to women who are dealing with knuckleheads, and then come to find out like they're dating men who were like their dad, or they end up getting in the streets like their dad was in the streets, and it just becomes this. And we know that street life is intergenerational anyway, so it becomes this kind of this cycle and I've noticed it for women in particular. So it's real.
It's definitely real. You touched on something where you guys mentioned a lot, because both of you being in the street part, you guys are familiar with the stats.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, Black men are more involved in their child's life.
Contrary
now more than
to
ever,
popular belief.
Yeah.
More involved based on society standards, right? And does the child feel that way?
That's a good one.
I'm dad. I'm taking care of the house. I take you to the movies. You got the latest Jordans. We talk. We interact. I'm doing everything I think I should as a father, based off of what I see on TV, what I might have read, what I see my friends do, and the whole time you're missing the mark on the kid.
How does that happen, though?
Not knowing your child.
Yeah.
Facades.
Right.
Facebook.
Right. Right.
Let me take this picture. Oh, baby boy, we here.
For the gram.
Right?
Yep.
On the whole time, it's like, dog, you missing the mark. You missed the mark for too long. It gets messy.
And I think, too, society plays a role. I mean, we literally are bombarded with negative images of black men, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so even if you have a good dad, society is trying to get you to feel like, well, Johnny's dad is better because of this and this and this.
Yeah.
And I feel like those stereotypes are lasting. We believe them, even though they're not true.
Yeah, social media. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cold too. So social media do it, right?
Yeah.
Dang, his dad always take him to the game.
Yep.
My dad here. What's going on?
Right.
And the whole time, but that goes back to having that understanding early on.
Right.
Because if you don't have that understanding, it's like, yeah, we can go to the game, but I'm not gonna be able to buy you the PlayStation I was thinking about buying you. But you don't know that because we ain't talking, and you just basing your perception of what a father should be on things that outside of the household instead of. But that falls on the dad, though.
It does, but to me, it's bigger. That's the poverty piece, right? So, like, thinking about how our communities are torn up. My poverty, you have dads who are putting their best foot forward.
Yeah.
But if you don't got the money, Johnny ain't getting nothing. Right? So even you can care all you want, right? But kids think about the materialistic stuff, the Jordans, the PlayStation, what their friends have, right? But if you are poor and you don't have money, you can't get those things to your kid.
Right.
And that's how our community has been, in my opinion, systemically, disenfranchised.
You just made me have an idea. Maybe we need workshops around communication.
Okay.
Maybe that's key.
Yeah.
Because I'm poor and I might not be able to provide, but if I love you, I need to be able to communicate to you effectively.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that way you don't go out and do nothing crazy or grow up thinking that I might feel another way because we didn't talk.
Yeah, and I'm the older guy in the room. I'm the older guy in the room. So much of me being a father is connected to what I can do for my kids in this country.
Yeah, that's
the
American dream, right?
You know what I mean? So much of me being a father, being a good father, is connected to being a provider. And that's, at the crux of it, we got to separate those two things.
That's it.
You know what I mean? You still got to be, you're still responsible for providing for your family. You know what I mean? Without a doubt. But we got to separate my worth and my value as a father from material things. Because I think about, going to the game and things of that nature. Things of that nature. It's like, if I'm making $12 an hour, we're not going to the Sixers game.
That's it. That's
you know what I mean?
Facts.
We just can't. That's not in the cards.
Right.
I'm making $12 an hour.
That's real.
But Johnny's dad down the street might be making $17 an hour.
Right.
And they might be able to squeak out a couple games a year, whatever like that. You know what I mean? And the reality is this, people are paying, spending a lot of their income on the necessities.
Right.
Food, clothing, shelter. A lot of it, is being spent on the necessities.
Yep.
And oftentimes the extras come from people making sacrifices, working those, 1.5 to 2 jobs and things of that nature. If I'm making $12 an hour, I can't take you to the game, to the Sixers game. Sixers game is expensive.
And just a plug, they say in Delaware, like to have a basic living, you need to be making at least $17 an hour. And there are so many of us that aren't. So you can imagine.
Making $17 an hour. Let me be clear about
that. How does the father-child dynamic change when the father bases their value and society's pressuring them that a good being stable financially equals good dad?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when the kid doesn't need financial stability from you anymore?
Like getting older?
Like how does the relationship change? Like when I don't need a couple dollars. I don't need $40 to get by. I'm good if you never give me $1.
Because my dad was just like, here. But you get older and you don't need it the same way.
Now what?
It's weird. It makes it
what
weird.
What we going to do for the next 60
That's
years?
What I'm saying.
What was this based on?
He feels like, here, I'm going to give you this money. I love you. This is my love, right?
Yeah.
But But all this time, I wanted some other kind of love.
Right.
So it's deep. That's
Man.
deep. I never even thought about that.
The conversation.
Yeah.
But it goes back to here's another thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and this is for you young people, so y'all understand. Sometimes, as children, we have to teach our parents how to parent.
Wow.
Sometimes we got to teach them how to parent.
How?
You know what I mean? Because it's a different dynamic. I'm giving you the situation what you talk about now. You know what I mean? Hey, you don't need a couple of hours here and there.
I mean, I can always use a couple of dollars, but I get
look
what
at
you're saying.
Look, wait a minute.
But the same way, like, you know what I mean? You're a kid wanting to go to the corner store. Versus, yeah.
Nah, but it's like, hey, you know what I mean, Dad, I appreciate that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But let's you know what I mean? The nature of a relationship is changing. You know what I mean? I'm 27, about to be 30.
Look.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
When you look up, because you're the same age as me, right?
Yeah, I'm about to be 30.
Yeah, you about to be 30.
I'm about to be 28.
28.
Yeah. Look at you. Look at you. You holding on. About to be 30. And but it's like that, you know what I mean? I appreciate that. And like you said, you might take a couple of hours or whatever like that, but you know what I mean? You gotta teach them, like, it's a different dynamic to our relationship now, because you know what I mean, married or in a serious relationship, children, bonus children, you know what I mean? And I want to get into that in a little bit.
Sure.
And it's just different. It's like, you know what I mean, let's talk. You know what I mean? Let's have a conversation.
Right.
And sometimes you gotta teach them about that. Because I mean, I'm gonna tell you, growing up, you know what I mean, being a father, and you know what I mean, our parenting is connected to providing, and it's like you get older and it's like, I don't need it. It's like, well, what do you mean? Well, I'm not your dad no more. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not your dad no more. It's weird. You know what I mean? It's hard.
True. That's so true.
It's hard. And you got, you know what I mean? Sometimes you got to say, nah, you still my dad. I love you. You know what I mean? We got a different dynamic to this relationship.
Right.
Brooklyn, let me ask you this.
Yeah, sure.
What are some key things that you think every father-daughter relationship should have? Probably like your top 3 things.
Top 3 things every father-daughter relationship should have. A daughter wants to feel like their dad is going to protect them.
Okay.
Right? Like when they go out into the world, if something happens, they feel like they could go to their dad and share it with them, and their dad is going to handle it. However, whatever way you need it to be handled, it's going to be handled. A daughter wants to see their dad in a position of control, and not of like dogmatic control, but a leader of his household. Like, seeing my mom handle the day-to-day was frustrating sometimes. I wanted to see more of that union come together, wherein my dad was in control of the day-to-day.
Right.
Even thinking about my relationship now, like thinking about how you marry your dad in some ways, right? Like, so I'm like my mom, like control. And then my partner is more laid back, like my dad is. So I think in some ways, a lot of women want a man to step up in a way that's not controlling, but to step up and lead and guide his household.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, bonus mom.
How
thought? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. How's the relationship, and how did your upbringing, you know what I mean, relationship with your mother and your parents, you know what I mean, how does that play into the type of bonus mother that you are?
That's a really good one, Coley. So I am a bonus mom in the sense that my boyfriend's niece lives with us. She's lived with us for like the past 3 or 4 years, and he now has full custody of her. Okay. So my boyfriend's sister has dealt with drug problems and addiction all her life, and so she couldn't care for my niece or any of her other kids that she had. So my niece was actually a drug baby. Her mom had cocaine in her system, a couple drugs, and that affects her life to this day, right? So we know kids who were born drug addicted have problems in schools as it relates to their learning. So she has a slight learning disability. And so me coming into the picture back in 2013, I would say, becoming her bonus mom, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting development. Because for me, first off, I didn't expect to be a parent. So that was one thing. It's one thing when you give birth to a child, or you help create a child and you see them grow from infancy. But we kind of got treasured around 8. So So it was like an 8-year-old was kind of dropped in my lap, and now she's looking at you as the only mom she really knows.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn a lot quickly, like becoming a parent. Like none of my other friends have kids, so it's been interesting. So we've developed from her calling me Brooklyn, so now she calls me mom.
Oh wow.
And I had to, and that was a weird thing for me. So for me, it was, I didn't want people to see, she's 12 now, right? So that would have meant, okay, you had her at 15. I didn't like the stigma of how people kind of looked at us, well, oh, she's 12, well, how old are you? But also she was calling me by my first name, so that was weird. And so I had to kind of swallow it and say, you know, she needs a mom now more than I need my ego of being 27 with a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I had to swallow it, and I'm still swallowing it. It's hard, but she needed a mom.
That's awesome.
She needed a mom. So thanks. I mean, it's hard. You know, the financial stuff is all us. And she's 12, so she's grown into a young lady, dealing with things at school, trying to get her up to speed learning-wise, because I said she has a learning disability.
Yeah.
It's been interesting, man. Yeah. It's been a roller coaster.
Huh.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade it though. I think it's hard, but even thinking now about raising a daughter, I'm trying to train myself on how to inject in her as much positivity as I can, because we know that this world is cruel.
Very much so.
Yeah. It's tough. But I'm here. I try.
That was deep. That was deep. The whole, you know what I mean, about like the stigma of, you know what I mean, somebody looking at you, you know what I mean, having this perception of you being a young girl having a child. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's heavy. Because people do. I mean, I'm 27. I don't look 40. So people are always trying to figure out, well, what is going on here? Like, where did she come from? And so it's bringing people up to speed, you know, people that matter anyway, bringing them up to speed on what's going on. But at the same time realizing, like, okay, she is in these formative years. Yeah. She needs a mom. You were the only, you know, woman besides her grandmother before she passed that she knows. Yeah. But then it helps to go on what you were saying with family. My family is so supportive. Yeah. My mom calls Treasure her bonus grand, and you know they've circled her in and love and support her. My dad will take her out movies, and so I think that's helped me. Yeah. My village has helped me nurture her.
Nice. We do that though. We do that. That's a beautiful thing, man. I mean, we all family here, but you know, family, but just as a people, man, I love that, man. I love that because it's been times, you know what I mean, where people just need that, you know, and it's just amazing, man. It's amazing.
And it sounds like you're saying, like, you know, the fact that we nurture and care for people that might not even be our blood, and bring them in like our own. Yeah. That's what we do as a people. Yeah.
It's a lot, you know what I mean, just looking at you know what I mean, I'm a bonus father. Yeah. But look back, like all of my, you know what I mean, most of like my cousins, you know what I mean, cousins I'm closest, you know what I mean, closest to, male cousins, like, and some of my nephews and whatever like that have been bonus fathers. Yeah. And I remember my sister said this to me, before she passed away. I remember my sister Retta, she's second from the oldest, and she told me, we was talking about it one time, and she was like, that's what we do. Like, and it was just matter of fact. It was like, you know, it's matter of fact. It's like, you know, I mean, most of the men, you know, what I mean, in our family got kids that are not their blood children, but we take care of them. And he said that's just what we do, and that was heavy, man. And I was like, damn, you know what? She's right. You know what I mean? She's right.
But that's the part that a lot of people don't know about, right? Like you know, we have all these stereotypes about our community, but the reality is that we have this extended village wherein people are getting taken care of on an extended way. Yeah. So I think that's deep. Yeah. That's deep.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, what you mentioned that it's roller coasters and it's challenges, but that's life.
That's true.
It's life. Some challenges we pick and choose. Some are kind of forced on us, and we just got to kind of deal with it.
Right.
But it sounds like you're coming from a place of love, which is good, and you value add to her. It's not like you just there.
Right.
You value add. She gets the full life experience now because you stepped in. Right. Like you said, you took your ego to the side, or you know it should be 27, and she'll think back and she'll say, you know what, Mom really looked out.
Yeah.
Her being in my life made my life better.
That's it. And that's something too, a message for like women. I mean, because the thing is, a lot of people our age have kids. We know this, right? So getting into relationships with guys who have kids, I think it's really important for women, particularly if you're serious about the relationship, to be serious about that child too.
You got to be value add.
Yeah.
It's not going to work otherwise.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's not going to work otherwise.
I got another little plug right here. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Women, so here's the thing, and I've seen people, go through this. When we marry or get in a relationship with a woman and they have children, it's automatically understood that it's a package deal. So we understand, hey, I'm with this woman, I love her, I'm gonna love her children,
Okay.
and support them and whatever like that. We have to make please make sure that it's reciprocated.
There it is.
You know what I mean? Because
It.
we have children too, right? And sometimes we come to relationships and we live whole lives or whatever like that. Make sure that, to the best of your ability,
Right.
that you reciprocate that. You know what I mean? When men come into the relationship, you know what I mean, make sure that you loving on that child as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Make sure you going outside of your way. The relationship can't be contingent upon your spouse or your mate, and that relationship. You got to establish your own relationship
With the
outside of
kid.
that. Sure.
Well, how do you negotiate? So in my part, like I said, my niece's mom is drug addicted, so she's not around at all. Right? But there are some cases where the baby mom or the child's mom is still in the picture. And I think a lot of times that conflict is what makes the relationship building with the new mom difficult.
Right.
Right? Because you have this situation where the child's mother's like, no, this is my child, right? And so it adds this tension. So what do y'all think about that? Like negotiating that part of it, where you're dealing not just with the person you're with, but the child and his mom.
Yeah, it can be challenging. But if you got to, first of all, if you're dealing with a man who doesn't have his child around, you need to get away from him. Because he's not.
Say that again for
if
people
you, I'm gonna say it again. If you're dealing with a man and he's not bringing his children around, you need to get away from him because he ain't shit.
Yeah.
Period. But when they come around, sometimes you gotta go above and beyond to build and connect that relationship with that child. Because here's the thing, as Amar alluded to, you only raising a child for a certain period of time.
Right.
Child get 14, 15, 16 years old or whatever like that. They got their own mind and their own opinion, and mom may have some, have some angst or some resentments or whatever the case may be about dad. But this child is gonna be like, you know what, Miss Such and Such, or whatever you call them, she loves me. And she cares for me. And I want to spend time with her, or whatever like that, and build that relation. And that's what it is. You know what I mean? Because as they go on and they get older, you get in your 20s and you start looking back, you understand, oh, you know what? I know why. Mom, I understand it. I understand why you don't like such and such or Miss Such and Such or whatever like that. However, that stuff is past. My relationship with her is good. It's been a respectful relationship, and like, as I go on in my life and have my own children, whatever like that, she's going to be a part of her life, and we're just going to have to navigate
That's
that.
it.
But you got to work, because like I said, as being a bonus dad, it's hard. What I mean? Sometimes it's like, you early stages, you don't know where to step in, and where she, how do I impose myself here? Do I fall back? And what I mean? But then it comes down to, being dad on duty.
That's it.
You know what I mean? These kids, they're in your household, and it's like, for me, it's a simple thing. Everything in my household is mine. Period. Everything in my household is mine. Period.
Yeah.
And I don't care what's going on over here or over there, whatever tensions or whatever like that. Everything in my household is mine, and I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna make sure that everything is straight over here. You know what I mean? So
when you hold men accountable, to be fathers, some of the situation, like regardless of how the relationship between the mom and the dad works out, when you hold men accountable to be fathers, and then you get like the bonus dad situation, now the kid kind of gets two dads.
Yeah.
They get their, when the biological dad is holding it down, right? And then you get The phone started ringing. When the biological dad is holding it down, and then for whatever reason the mom remarries, now you get the bonus dad who's a value add, and then you got your mom. Now the kid has two fathers essentially.
Right.
When the biological dad ain't holding it down,
Right.
you got like 1.5.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got to think about the kids, right? Like for optimal success.
Yep.
We can't just be hung up on our own stuff when there's a child involved. Some of that stuff you have, like I was saying, pushing some stuff aside so that that child has the best life that they can have.
Just can't push your other children aside.
Right.
No.
But that's what Coley was saying, right?
Don't push your other kids aside.
Because it has it's far too common. A lot of when we do Out of the Ashes, you'd be surprised how many kids sit in that audience and feel some type of way because they see me and my dad and our relationship, and they like, well, they confused. It's like, well, my dad is around, but he don't do nothing for me because he live around the corner.
Around the corner. I was
with
just going to say that.
With a whole nother family.
Right.
And his the person that he's with concerned about her kids,
right?
Yep,
and doesn't hold herself accountable,
or him
accountable to even be in the kid's life. So now the kid got their dad, but they got to watch their dad in another house with another woman. The woman's only concerned about her kids and making sure that child's dad from over here, that their dad is taking care of her kids. Everything else is aside, and this kid sits over here and he watch and he grows up and gets better.
Right.
Yeah.
But then this kid eventually will have their own kids, right? Now what? Where's the grandfather? You know what I mean?
It's like, because divorce is high in our country, because marriage isn't as valued as it was back in 25 years ago, I think we need communication on blended families. A lot of people are having blended families. And so maybe it's not just communication, but it's like I was saying, communication on how to have a blended family that's functional and communicative.
I wrote it down. We need workshops. Out of the Ashes might have to pull together a communication workshop for the community.
How about that?
I'm with it.
Out of the Ashes workshop communication community.
Facilitated by who? Y'all too?
Absolutely.
I hear
bring
that.
Somebody in. A professional.
Bring somebody in. A scholar from Rutgers.
No. Somebody who does like marriage family work for sure.
Yeah.
A therapist, like that healing stuff.
Yeah.
Healing.
That's a big piece. So on that note, you got any closing remarks for us, Brooklyn?
Closing remarks? I think I guess my message for all the millennials, like the 20s, the early 30s, particularly the ones who live in Wilmington still or are from Wilmington, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to, no matter how you grew up, whether you grew up in the nicer part of Wilmington or in the trenches, it's your responsibility to give back to those, not just give back, but in a real way, to those who look like you and to those who have had different experiences than you. So for me, like I said, I grew up lower middle class home, right? But for me, nothing else matters but the liberation of Black folks. And so I wish more folks felt like I did, right? There's a lot of young professionals in Wilmington who are making decent money, Black young professionals, right? But aren't giving back to their community. So my message would be get involved in a real way so that we can eradicate some of the ills that are going on in our community, the violence, the concentrated poverty, the joblessness. And I feel like in getting involved, that's the liberation part.
Awesome. So, you got any closing remarks?
No,
Mr. Melton?
Thank you very much for coming out and giving us an amazing interview. We covered a wide variety of topics with fatherhood being at the core.
You know he my son. He think he my boss too.
Look, he's in charge on the low.
Yeah, but thank you so much for coming out, Brooklyn. We appreciate you and we love you.
Of course, I love y'all too.
Yeah. So I'm Coley Harris.
I'm Amar Melton.
And thank you for listening to Missing Dad.